Hello everyone. Today my topic is foreign direct investment as FDI, and go furthermore a look at FDI utilization in high-speed rail industry in the world. The content consists of the definition of FDI, categorize difference between FDI and FPI, global scene, FDI distribution in the world, high-speed rail involvement, the question how FDI makes high-speed rail legit as the next growth engine. FDI in China's high-speed rail network expansion, the approach of applying FDI to practice, risks, and improvement thresholds. First thing first, what is FDI? It is an investment inflows into a company in a country, and meanwhile it is an outflow from another company which located in another country. As a consequence, the companies or entities using FDI have significant influence on the country that got the FDI inflow. Usually, open economies with skilled workforce and good growth prospects tend to attract larger amounts of FDI than closed high-regulated economies. According to the greater foreign presence, along with greater foreign investment, it could be exporting the products made at home, which is the base mode of foreign investment, licensing management contract, joint venture, strategic alliance, and FDI. As we observe, exporting is a front-end investment with typically a lower fee than in other modes. So it could be done with a low risk as an advantage. On the contrary, the occupation of market share would be unstable because of the procedure of responding market tendency. Licensing is a popular mode for domestic firms to profit from foreign markets without the need to commit sizable funds. In contrast, an unsuccessful licensing may cause possible loss of quality control, establish another competitor, possible improvement by local license that you might don't want to see, and high agency fees. Compared to struggle in holding foreign companies' management, control assets abroad might reduce the risks that comes with licensing. Joint venture is one of the modes that controls assets abroad. A company is less than 50% of capital owned by parent's company is termed a foreign affiliate, and joint venture is a typical one. There are three forms of being strategic alliance. The first is that two firms exchange a share of ownership with one another. Second form is more comprehensive that parents establish a separate joint venture to develop and manufacture a product or service. The third level is that the cooperation might be based on joint marketing and servicing agreement, which reflect on representing each other in certain markets. Foreign portfolio investment, as FPI, is a prevailing form of investing into another foreign company. Unlike FDI, it is very easy to sell off the securities and pull out the foreign portfolio investment. Hence, FPI can be much more volatile than FDI. For a country on the rise, FPI can bring about rapid development, helping an emerging economy move quickly to take advantage of economic opportunity, creating many new jobs and significant wealth. However, when a country's economic situation takes a downturn, sometimes just by failing to meet the expectation of international investors, the huge flows of money into a country can turn into a stampede away from it. The global overview of FDI in 2013 is on the Atlas. Totally last year was $619 billion investment in the world. As we can see, the top source country is US. In other words, the capital market in America is active and seeking high returns. Depends on FDI phenomenon. More than 1,532,000 jobs was created by almost 12,000 projects. The top destination country of FDI inflow is China, which means China is getting open and seeking foreign direct investment to undertake the high growth rate. FDI has inflows and outflows that for destination country and source country respectively. Here in figure 2, we can see lines goes up and down constantly, and the blue line matches the world FDI tendency the best. So all 34 countries in FDI integrated as the main player in the world, and compared to figure 3, inflows are less than outflows from OECD. In Figure 3, OECD as the source entity sustained the majority of outflows as well. As we saw in the global map, countries in North America are usually source countries. Green refers the FDI range from $6 billion to $9 billion. So Ontario and Texas are top 1 and top 2, which has more than 12% and more than 11% of all FDI market share, respectively. And California followed with 8.65%. In the perspective of Asian Pacific, China accounts for $64.1 billion from FDI, followed by India with $15.8 billion and Vietnam $15.3 billion. Obviously, Asian Pacific is the destination region of FDI that brings high returns for foreign investors. Countries that demand high-speed rail require significant amount of capital resource and fundamental facilities. Basically, it is a technology-intensive and capital-intensive industry. Globally, high-speed rail might be the next growth engine of undertaking global economy by some economists. The present major player of high-speed rail in terms of core competence are German Siemens, France Alstom, Japan Kawasaki, and China South Locomotive. In America, high-speed rail is identified as an accumulation of high-tech jobs, big construction, real estate development, manufacturing, tourism, and speedy, efficient transportation for all. California high-speed rail was estimated by the budget of $766 million initially, which means possibly urging further investment in the following 80 years at the time of coming into service. In China, the proposal of high-speed rail with FDI was started from 2010 by China's government. The stock market slumping, a real estate bubble, and rising CPI statistics spurred a spiral upward of domestic capital that desires outflows abroad for high, stable returns. Now, China's government is negotiating with 19 countries or regions about high-speed rail that comes with FDI involvement. However, the existing situation is actually only 158 kilometers located overseas market over FDI by China's government. As we just mentioned, high-speed rail is both capital and technology-intensive industry. Normally, there are 3 segments that trigger the demands of high-speed rail: high population density, abundant electricity capability, and sufficient capital. In Japan, the long and narrow terrain sustains almost 130 million people. High-speed rail has been applied as transportation in Japan more than 50 years. Several nuclear power plants provide significant electricity for underlying high-speed rail. After several decades development, Japan's high-speed rail achieved a significant success, but now it encounters a bottleneck. Actually, 15 years ago, China's government was struggling with the huge demand of transportation and short of decent solution. Afterward, China's government imported Siemens and Kawasaki as market technology trade and acquisition. In China, high-speed rail is state-owned, and the government intends to block domestic private capital out of the door. Therefore, FDI helped China got both in core technology and proprietary. Consequently, Chinese engineers did localizational tuning and improvement in order to constitute own core competence. Those 2 figures put into comparison are about GDP statistics in China from 2002 to 2014. From the latter figure, after 2004, China's GDP has passed $2,000 billion and continued increasing in a high rate. Even in 2009, from the right figure, the big V shape still represents to a growth rate that about 6%. The capital spending reached an all-time high record of $112 billion in 2010, which is 9 times the level of investment in 2005. The investment in high-speed rail will account for around 70% of the total railway investment between 2006 and 2015, while the length of new high-speed rail line increased from 410 kilometers in 2010 to 5,142 kilometers in 2010. So domestically, China has abundant experience on high-speed rail projects. Usually, companies or entities have two types of foreign investment, bundled and unbundled. Normally, FDI means the bundled form. However, FDI in China's high-speed rail expansion is called construction mode by some economists. So in the unbundled form, China exports locomotive part or only construction regarding low fees. Recently, a successful bid was suspended and cancelled eventually in Mexico. The announcement from Mexico's government is for transparency, which more like an excuse. Therefore, we have to take into account of risks. Cultural issue can be seen as a huge gap when China's high-speed rail expands. Language barrier could reflect the most of the cultural issues. Some cases was unfortunately cancelled because of wrong translation of paperwork in overseas bid. Political issue is more often in former communist countries, some bids in Romania. Politics are abstract and mentally staggering. The government issue occurred in the contract between China and Thailand. In 2010, the Prime Minister of Thailand government signed a contract that details touch on doing FDI from China. A very interesting part in that contract is called rice rail bartering. For countries are not really able to afford high-speed rail, natural resource, or other core competence products are access to pay off. However, after the military revolution in Thailand, the contract was dropped into the trash can by new Thai government. About religionary, in Mecca, people have to pilgrimage regularly, so local workforce that China high-speed rail company hired have to extend the working schedule, which causes deficit. Currency translation exposure is getting more frequently in international transaction. Chinese currency is not the transaction money, so in FDI contracts between China and any other country will face potential risks by the fluctuation of foreign exchange rate. To my understanding, high-speed rail industry is a typical application of FDI because it is costly for all those countries that have demands. Thus, high-speed rail expansion is also a capital expansion by source countries. Industry standards, commercial limitation in contracts, and other invisible influence exist and strengthen gradually over FDI. All in all, FDI is utilized in high-speed rail industry corresponding bilateral strategic advantages.